Today on Comicstorian, Spider-Man 2099 is going to meet the X-Men 2099. This is the Comicstorian channel where I take various things involved in the world of comic books, and I break them down into digestible bites. I cut out a ton of the fluff and the extra content so that you know exactly what is happening in the actual storyline, but this allows you to go to your local comic book store and buy the issues so you know what's happening, or go to your digital retailer and buy it that way. You can get more context and more artwork that way. All of the artwork is owned by its respective companies, and all alterations we make are to avoid copyright issues. Today we're going to continue our storyline of Spider-Man 2099. There's an entire playlist getting you caught up to this moment, but here's your fast recap. Spider-Man 2099 is Miguel O'Hara, and he's in the far future, super far, of 2099. In this future, Thor has seemingly left, and there is a bunch of religious zealots that are praising Thor, waiting for his return. Well, in our last issue, Thor seemingly did return, and used his hammer to pretty much decimate Spider-Man 2099. As he was attempting to recover, though, he met Punisher 2099. And now he needs to find a way to figure out what Thor is doing back in the current day. Let's get into this crossover as it crosses into Ravage 2099, number 15. Ravage stands in his lab, having just disconnected the Halo call from the X-Men about their missing friend, Jordan Boone. The holodisc that Ravage managed to steal from Alchemax shows the truth about their floating city of Valhalla. But it turns out that the X-Men aren't ready to take Ravage's answers about Boone, as Bloodhawk comes flying through the window, demanding the disc with all the information. Bloodhawk grabs Ravage, but is shocked when the man starts to remove his coat. "What are you doing?" he asks, and Ravage smiles, explaining that he doesn't want to ruin his suit during his transformation. "You know, the bit where I rip kids like you apart," he says as he suddenly transforms, becoming a man-beast hybrid. "What is going on here?" Bloodhawk asks, surprised by this turn of events. He backs down, explaining that he merely wants to find Boone and stop Valhalla. Ravage calms his beastly nature. "Okay, I'm just as eager to see it fall as well. Maybe we're on the same side, us against that Thor," Ravage tells him, and the rest of the X-Men are brought in short order, with Ravage filling them in on everything that he knows about Valhalla and how its faulty grav engines are going to drop it out of the sky. So they finally decide that they need to get the full answers as to what is going on. They need to go to Valhalla. After stealing a nearby hover car, they head out, flying to that city. And along the way, Ravage explains that they can't bring the city down because of the ecological disaster that would be. "It's already destroying the environment," Mean Streak explains, but Ravage nods, explaining that they need to replace the long-wave generators to fix it. "I have an uneasy ally, a guy named Doom. I think I can work with him to fix the problem," Ravage explains, and with their plan decided, the group decides to approach the flying city, but they're quickly met by the members of the Public Eye, working for Alchemax and the supposed Aesir. The heroes all bail out, quickly meeting the officers in battle as Ravage grabs a hoverbike and continues towards the city. He flies through the guards that await him, but is unaware of Heimdall watching from above. Heimdall leaps down in front of the next group of guards, ordering them to stand down. "I will deal with this interloper myself." Meanwhile, in downtown, Punisher continues to aim his blaster at Spider-Man, trying to figure out if he's working against Alchemax or not. "For the little I know about you, I'd say we're both good guys, Punisher," Spider-Man tells him, asking him to put the blaster away. "Oh yeah, sorry." He motions through the rubble to the hoverbike that he has nearby, offering to take them both back up to the flying city and deal with the new threat from Alchemax. "So what are we gonna do to get back to Valhalla?" Spider-Man asks, and Punisher just looks at him. "What I always do, kick butt." Above, Heimdall leaps at Ravage, roaring at the beast for sullying their city as he slashes through his hoverbike with his sword. But Ravage leaps out of the way, headbutting him hard. They both fall to the lower platform, with Ravage trying to keep Heimdall busy as Bloodhawk sneaks up behind him. He whirls with his sword, knocking the mutant away. "Ah, the so-called X-Men. Loki warned me that you might come," the god says to them as the rest of the X-Men arrive to back up their teammate. But Ravage tries to slip away as the X-Men meet Heimdall in battle. He's suddenly slashed from behind as a new god steps out of the shadows, Hela, smiling down at him. "I didn't want to miss giving you a flesh wound first. Hela, queen of the underworld, wants this to last." She swings her mighty rake at him again, cutting through the concrete wall. "I know how you repair, Ravage, but you won't repair after I've cut you into 15 pieces." She laughs, with Ravage ducking underneath the blow, leaping up and punching her across the face. As much as I hate doing this to a lady, he shouts, but as she falls, she looks up at him in her eyes. How did you hit me like that? Ravage rushes at her, realizing that it's Tiana, his old assistant, and he picks her up. But her attitude changes again as she reaches for the rake. She whirls, slashing him across the chest. He dodges another attack, slashing her across the stomach, wondering how they can fight someone that they used to be close to. He ducks under another attack, telling her that they need to talk, but she refuses to go back to the woman that fawned over him, because now she is the goddess of death. That's a crock and you know it! You're being used, he shouts as he slams into her, knocking her to the ground. All of this Thorish stuff is a front for the bad guys, he says to her, pinning her to the ground, trying to talk some sense into her, explaining that the city will fall out of the sky and destroy New York. Lies! You've always lied! She shouts as she slashes at him, grabbing her rake again, but he doesn't fight back, waiting for the blow. I'm prepared to die to prove it. Tears spring into her eyes as she moves the blade at the last moment, slamming it into the ground. You really mean it? You were prepared to die to prove your point to me? She asks quietly. He nods and she sobs, falling into Ravage's arms as she tells him that she didn't think it through. It's okay. Let me help. He whispers to her, but she pushes him away, telling him that she can't trust herself, and flies off. Ravage tries to stop her, but realizes that there's still a job to do, heading back to Valhalla. Meanwhile, below in the streets of New York, a public eye police wagon is suddenly struck by a bolt of lightning. Skullfire pulls himself free from the wreckage, apologizing to the Alchemex cops. I have friends to find, and I know just where to look, he says as he stares up to the floating city above. Far above, Heimdall stands before the X-Men, wielding his magic sword. Bow before Heimdall and swear allegiance to the gods of Asgard. Lightning crashes in the background, with Mean Streak just looking at him. If you want to swear, I've got some choice words for you. He snaps, but Bloodhawk just rushes the god. God, oh man! You will not stop me again! This place is an abomination that sucks the life out of the sky and the earth! He bellows, but Heimdall moves too quickly, slamming the hilt of his sword into Bloodhawk, as he explains that they cannot best somebody with senses as great as his. He raises his blade again over Bloodhawk's head, telling him that there is no place in Valhalla for him. But Chrysalis blasts him with diamonds, forcing Heimdall to turn and block her attack. I'll give you one thing! You're fast, Meanstream thinks to himself. But he whirls around at the god, running at super speed to take him up from behind. But Heimdall raises his arm, clotheslining the speedster. Your speed cannot outrace the clarity of my perception, mortal. To my eye, you move as slow as sap. Heimdall tells him as Meanstreak bounces away, slamming into a wall. But what the mutants don't see is a shadowy figure watching them. Loki, the trickster god. Wake soon, my friend. I didn't bring you here to miss the inspired mischief that Loki has arranged for mortals and gods alike. Heimdall turns back to Chrysalis, ordering her to surrender, but she refuses, when suddenly Ravage swings by, grabbing her, pulling her away from the fight. They land on another platform, with Ravage quickly filling her in what he learned about Hela. These Aesir are anything but gods, a diversion maybe, to take attention away from Valhalla's anti-grav tech. He says as they race through the city, explaining to her that he plans to go below to try to stop the engines. Crystalline reaches for her mother's old Thorite necklace, questioning who these people could be. Meanwhile, Thor himself is hovering over the people of New York. The storm swirling over the city as the lightning cracks above him. The true believers are trying to get up to Valhalla, but Skullfire manages to push through the crowd, using his powers to get past the guards and board a hover platform to go up. He remembers briefly about how the team had arrived in the city to look for Jordan Boone, who had warned them about a secret Alchemex plot. The team was quickly attacked by the public eye, and the rest managed to escape and head for Ravage while Skullfire was captured. Skullfire's thoughts are suddenly interrupted as the hovercar's engines begin to sputter and the vehicle shakes, with the pilot smiling at him, apologizing for only having one parachute. He leans over the edge and disappears into the city below, leaving Skullfire alone in a crashing car. As the car falls out from beneath him, Skullfire prepares for the worst, but he's suddenly caught and continues his upward climb to Valhalla. 1,000 feet below him, Punisher and Spider-Man dodge out of the way of the falling car. Bad enough we had to fly in this weather. Now the sky is falling! Spider-Man shouts, but is shocked by the city's reaction to the false gods. Punisher shakes his head as they continue to fly upwards. People need to believe in the promise of something better. Sometimes it's all they have, he says quietly as they arrive at the city. Meanwhile, the CEO of Alchemax smiles from his office looking at the images of his gods, reflecting on how gullible the masses of the city turned out to be. He smiles wider as he plans on his new gods destroying the so-called heroes that have become a thorn in his side. But meanwhile, aboard Valhalla, Crystalline orders Bloodhawk to stay back as she continues to try and keep Heimdall at bay. Once again, the god orders her to stand down, that she has proven herself worthy of staying in the halls of Valhalla. "But you have to swear allegiance to my lord and liege," he explains as he offers his hand, seeing her necklace and knows that she believes in Thor. "Not in your throat," she snaps, Mean Streak finally beginning to rise, hearing him warn him that he needs to move quickly to save his friends. He raises his head to find Loki standing before him. "Don't look so alarmed. I'm here to offer assistance," he says with a mischievous smile. He offers Mean Streak a device, explaining that Heimdall's power comes from neurotechnology and the device will turn it off. Mean Streak looks at him for a moment, not knowing if the god is toying with him, but he doesn't have time to doubt, grabbing the device, rushing forward. Heimdall turns to look at him as Mean Streak gets closer, but the mutant activates the device and Heimdall goes blind. "Odin's blood! I can see nothing, hear nothing, feel nothing," he bellows in surprise. "Good." Bloodhawk snarls as he comes up from behind the god, slamming his fist into the back of his head, knocking him out. The mutants are surprised that Loki has helped them, but he steps forward, revealing to them that he is the lost friend that they have been searching for. Mean Streak is shocked when he recognizes Boone, and his friend reveals that they learned that Alchemax was creating gods by resurrecting people's genetic codes. He managed to reprogram the machine to transform him into Loki, but maintained his old memories as well. A booming voice then interrupts the X-Men's reunion. "You are a hollow mockery of a god, a genetically engineered clown performing tricks in Alchemax's three-ring circus," Doom shouts. "Sorry I'm late, but this is Doom," Skullfire shouts as he waves next to the monarch. Doom steps off of his platform, explaining that the city and the resurrection of Thor intrigued him, forcing him to investigate. Loki nods, smiling as he explains that everyone has been assembled as he planned. "Do you suggest that I am here under your direction?" Doom asks him, but Loki laughs, explaining that everyone is a part of his glorious game. "Games! I've had enough of your games, little god!" Bloodhawk shouts as he smacks Loki away, leaping into the air, planning on bringing the city down before it can do more harm. But a bolt of lightning rips from the sky and hits him, throwing him to the ground. "Thou hast dared stand against the chosen of Asgard. Oh, this day thou shalt find no mercy. So says Thor, God of Thunder!" Thor shouts, holding his hammer high as the storm whirls around him. These two issues of the battle against Valhalla and Thor were kind of confusing, because we had a bunch of people that I didn't even recognize. And can we just comment for a moment that every member of the X-Men 2099 has some crazy 90s name? Bloodhawk, Mean Streak. I mean, come on. How edgy 90s can you get with those names? It's just awesome how some of this stuff is. Also, I apologize if Spider-Man wasn't in very much of this, because Spider-Man wasn't in much of this. This was the spin-off issues that continued the storyline, but he was just running around with Punisher in the background. Either way, guys, if you want to see how this continues, make sure you subscribe to the channel as the next episode will be out next Wednesday. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and go check out our Patreon where you get early access to a lot of these projects. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next time right here.